Hey everyone, I am really excited about this week's episode. We are going to be talking all about how to get invited to press events, red carpets, and most importantly, how you can be paid to attend events and or speak at events. As always, I am your host, Gigi Robinson. I am what I like to call a creatorpreneur. I do public speaking. I have written a book, which you can see behind me. And I, most importantly, love helping all of you on your journey within the creator economy. So without further ado, I would love to get into it and just tell you a little bit about my experience at South by Southwest, because it was my first ever time going and I did book this out of pocket. So I'm going to get into how much it costs to attend South by Southwest, what the badge process was like, if it was worth it in my opinion or not, how I secured brand partnerships, how I hosted an event, how I then spoke there, and yeah, what my plans are for the next conference I'll be going at, which by this time next week, I will actually be at Possible, and I will have a couple of really exciting episodes live for you the week after. Okay, so where do I even start? I knew that in 2026, I was going to go to South by Southwest. It was not an if, it was just a matter of how and what kind of risk I was willing to take in order to go to South by Southwest. So for me, I decided to book my tickets in late December. I highly recommend this if you want to save your money, because if you decide to buy your tickets for South by Southwest anywhere under a month before the event, I can almost guarantee you are going to be spending way more money than you should, because it is such a hot spot kind of event. Everybody's buying their tickets last minute. I have a friend that literally spent over $700 on airfare for that weekend, and I think I spent less than $500 total for a whole round trip. So highly recommend that. And same thing with a hotel. I also recommend this for any conference you're attending. For example, I also booked my flights to and from Cannes, or Nice, I guess, because you have to fly into Nice to get to Cannes. But I did book those flights specifically in January, and it's not until the end of June. I also booked my hotel because I was genuinely like, I do not want to pay these inflated prices. And as it stands today, I went on Airbnb just to check out some hotel costs. And for Cannes Lions today, you are looking at a minimum of $1,000 a night, which is diabolical, especially for an entire week. So if you're attending these kinds of events, you definitely want to think about planning ahead of time. And I know for any type B creatives out there, planning can be hard, but I personally have loved using tools like Adobe Acrobat, which genuinely have helped me grow and scale my own business, because I can build itineraries. I can also share things about what my flights are and have it organize all of my thoughts and give it to me in a fancy little report, which ultimately I will then use on my iPad and on my phone and sync it with my calendar so that I don't miss a thing. And I've just loved that. So you guys should all go check it out, because honestly, it changed the game for me. So just to get back into it, for South by Southwest, I booked my tickets. I was ready to go. And then a friend of mine hit me up and was like, hey, I think I want to go. So I was like, oh, okay, great. Let's share a room. And that definitely helped with the cost. So one of my biggest tips, and I genuinely stand by this, is announcing where you're going and what conferences you're going to. I announced that I was going to be going to South by Southwest all the way back when I booked my tickets in January. South by Southwest happens mid-March. I literally was posting about it at least once a week and talking about the fact that I was going to be there, the things I was looking forward to, my predictions, having never gone before. And just because I have been talking about going, that is actually how I got the opportunities that I got while I was there. So about a week and a half before the event, I got an email to my assistant's email, and it read opportunity for South by Southwest. They wanted to know if I was going to be there, if I already had a badge. And ultimately, a lot of people had already been telling me that you don't necessarily need a badge unless A, you're speaking, B, you need to go to the sessions, or C, you are just really curious. As a first timer at South by Southwest, I think having the badge was really lovely, but honestly, I just don't really think that I needed to pay for that badge for the information that I was getting, because I'm also connected with a lot of the speakers that were speaking. Obviously, for things like special keynotes with really important high profile people, that is where badge access will probably help you out the most. For the collaboration that I was contracted for, I actually was creating content as an on-the-ground reporter for them, which was really, really cool. And as somebody who is invested in the creator economy, I absolutely love learning about the creator economy and learning about everything and anything that touches it. I wanted to be on the ground capturing these insights, and I found an amazing brand partner that was actually really interested in having this for their own internal reporting about what brands were there, what creators were gaining, and all of that. So I was honored to do that work. It was incredible. And yes, I did need the pass for this. Otherwise, I don't know if I would have actually bought the pass. Next, I will say I did go out on a whim and I decided to host an event while I was at South by Southwest. And yes, that is probably a little bit crazy. I would not recommend adding more stress to your plate in an already high pressure environment. And what I mean by that is South by Southwest has so many different events going on all the time. And if you're attending in the future, I highly recommend building out an itinerary for yourself and also putting things in your calendar. Also add 15 to 20 minutes on top of and at the end of every single event that you're committing to go to, because inevitably you will run into somebody that you know from the industry. You will stay 15 minutes late. You have to run to the restroom. You have to grab a snack, or you're just simply waiting for Ubers. That was huge. Another awesome thing about South by Southwest for me this year was the fact that I do have really awesome relationships and I've spent years building them. So when I was sharing that I was going to South by Southwest, my friends over at Spotify were saying, hey, Gigi, we actually have some really cool creator programming. We would love to include you. We would love to meet up with you and have you as our guest while we were there. So I got Uber codes, which was so nice. And then I also obviously got to go to all of their events as a VIP creator. I got to go to the Ella Langley performance. And you guys, I love country music. So when I got to see her live, I was fangirling. Genuinely, I was so close to the front, and she has the voice of an angel. I don't know. That's all I'll say about it. I love her. She's incredible. And her story of actually taking a beat and a pause from making music because she felt so burned out and then returning by releasing her sophomore album is insane. And I love her for that because, you know, Gen Z's been through it. And as I think she's like 26, is like an almost 28-year-old. I definitely could say that taking those moments of reflection and the time off to help fuel your creativity is something that genuinely you just need to learn how to harness that skill of stepping away and then coming back better than ever. I also am obviously an Adobe ambassador for Acrobat, for Express, and Adobe Live, and I love Adobe. I love all the brands. So when they said we have a special briefing happening with Variety, I said, of course I'll come. And they did share Uber codes with me as well, which was so helpful. So I highly recommended. And because I had the Uber codes, I actually spent a lot of time pre-scheduling out Uber codes so that even if I got caught up in a conversation, my Uber was on the way, I did have to go. And that was very helpful and grounding throughout the entire experience. I also spent time reaching out to people to connect with ahead of time so that while I was there, I knew I would get everything that I needed to get out of the conference, whether that was an interview, etc. Now, on the note of hosting an event, I decided to partner up with a friend of mine named Victoria, and she has a company called Minding Her Own Business. She's incredible. You guys should all go check her out. We decided to host a casual coffee talk pop-up at a local coffee shop, and that experience was so fun. And the whole purpose behind it is to just have like a cute, casual vibe before the chaos of all of these official events was happening. I mean, Getty images, BFA images, blah, 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 red carpets, photography, loud music, you name it. Like South by Southwest is film, it's TV, it's culture, it's innovation, it's health, it's music, it's genuinely everything. And there was so much going on. So we just wanted to have a really grounded moment. And I am so grateful and excited that we did pull that off successfully. We had over 200 people there, and South by Southwest even featured us on their list of affiliated events, even though they should have given us free tickets to go. But even though they should have given us badges knowing that we pulled so many people to our event and they featured on their page. But hey, there's always hope for next year. And the last thing I'm going to say about South by Southwest and speaking there is number one, there are so many affiliated events like Inc. Founders House and Axios has a party, Muck Rack had a party, Spotify had a party. There's all of these different opportunities to actually speak there that are not affiliated with official South by Southwest. However, if you do want to actually speak at South by Southwest, you can submit to the panel picker. And this is becoming more and more common for industry conferences. You can submit your ideas and then they will either vote on them internally. And once they are internally voted on, you're either approved or usually you'll go into kind of like a sudden death approval process where they'll have a public vote and the public can vote on it. And whoever gets the most votes basically gets to speak at the conference. So highly recommend submitting to that if you have an idea worth sharing. And this is the same again for many, many conferences. I've submitted to VidCon to speak. I've submitted to Cannes Lions to speak, to South by Southwest, and made it actually pretty far in the process with South by, but we'll see about next year for a main stage opportunity. The last thing I want to say about South by Southwest is if you want to go and if you're interested, definitely post about it early, talk to people in the industry, announce that you're going, and reach out to all your contacts, whether that's at a big company, whether that's a startup, whether that's a past brand partner, reach out. Because more than ever, we are now seeing brands wanting to activate at cultural, educational, thought leadership, edutainment themed events. More than ever, we're seeing brands activate at big cultural moments like South by Southwest, like Cannes, like VidCon and Coachella and Stagecoach, and the list goes on and on and on. So any brand that you may want to work with and you have a unique idea for may want to sponsor you or may do a brand deal that you can do that highlights your experience at that cultural moment. And then the brand deal is basically what funds your trip. If you want to get in the room, I highly recommend taking that route first, especially if you have nailed brand partnerships, and then go the route of speaking, especially if you're not an established speaker already. So how do you get invited to your first event? How do you get invited to events at South by Southwest? I hate to say it, but if you are lazy and you rely on inbounds to go to different events, it's probably going to be pretty dry for you. And I don't say that to be mean. I say that because until you get to a certain level, you likely will not have other people building you an itinerary for an event that's likely in another city. That said, if we're taking it out of the context of the conference world and we just want to talk about getting invited to events in New York, in Miami, in LA, well, it all comes down to relationship building. So over the years, I have been invited to many, many events. And at the beginning of my career, I thought it was so valuable. And I still actually do believe going to events is really, really valuable. However, I don't always believe that attending an event as a content creator is going to land you a paid opportunity with a brand. So I do think going to the events is great for exposure. It's great for brand affinity. It's great for obviously getting product. And as you get the product or you create content about the event that you went to, the brands are watching. They have social listening tools where they can actually see what you're posting in real time. That is why a lot of the times brands will actually have really cool activations at their event with, for example, one that sticks out in my mind is Meta. They had Real School. And when you attend Real School, you're not only hearing from the head of Instagram at the event, you also have cute drinks with Instagram logoed ice cubes in there. You have a custom varsity jacket and a backpack that they give you. They're giving you insider tips before they drop for the public to use in your content. And then you obviously get to network with a bunch of creators. So it's really valuable in that sense, but also creating the content that you were, in the room with about 100 different creators is obviously a little bit of a flex. And when people see that you go to those kinds of events, it also puts you top of mind for other brands that are having adjacent events. For example, if I'm going to events with platforms like Meta, YouTube, Snapchat, it signals to the other platforms that I'm in their creator community. And if I'm in their creator communities, well, wouldn't they want me in their community as well, posting about the brand, talking really nicely about the brand and how awesome their events are? likely. The same goes for movie premieres, the same goes for beauty events, and so on and so forth. And there was a period of my life where I was going to events almost every day, sometimes multiple events in one day. And that can be so, so exhausting. But at the end of the day, I don't think I would be where I am had I not showed up at those events. It's also very much about messaging and thanking them for the content, putting the links to your content that you created at the event inside of an email to the people that invited you. And also just saying like, hey, thank you so much. I have this really fun, unique idea. If you ever want to partner, would love to share more. And usually letting them have the ball in their court is a great way to begin that relationship, especially early on. But like I said, I'm at a certain point where I've been going to influencer events now since about 2017, and I've been around. And right now, I'm in a place in my career where I have other things that I'm working on. Not that I'm not grateful to go to those events, not that those events aren't fun and incredible content opportunities, but genuinely, I am so maxed out with what I'm building that I just think that the opportunity cost to commute into Manhattan, go to the events, it could just be a little exhausting for me unless it is a part of a larger partnership or content initiative that I'm focused on. So always keep that in mind. And something really important I just mentioned is opportunity cost. So for those of you that don't know what that means, essentially it is what is the cost of every single opportunity that comes along in your business, right? What is it going to cost you if you spend a half a day in the city attending an event? And what is the value of that event and attending that event and getting that content at the event going to be for you? And how is that different than it would be if you stayed home and maybe filmed a podcast episode or did an admin day or was filming another brand deal? All of this is all interrelated. And if you're not thinking about this, which I don't think I really did start thinking about it until I started making, more than an entry level salary and making over six figures in my business, because at the end of the day, I realized I have to be at my desk for certain amounts of time. And if I am not, I might miss things, I might get overloaded, and my business can't really run right now without me because obviously I'm the face of the brand. But early on, it was just about visibility and exposure. So when I had that in the beginning of my business and was attending events in the beginning of my business, the opportunity cost was actually not being visible. So it definitely has shifted, and I feel like it's on this scale that has shifted over time. But I'm grateful and I'm super content with it. And to anybody that is creating content that is at this juncture where you have to make these bigger decisions about when you go to events, what events you go to, just think carefully and also think about the brand alignment. Something else that I wanted to answer is what makes somebody invite worthy for an event before they have a large following? And it really does come down to everything I just talked about. It's, are you going to be posting about that event while you're there? Are you going to do your best to not just network with the creators in the room, but are you going to network with the people on the brand side? Do you know how to go up to people and shamelessly ask like, hey, my name is Gigi. Thank you so much for the invite. I'm curious if you saw Brittany around. I'd love to say hi to her. And then whoever that is says, oh, she's over there. And then you go and you talk to her and you say, oh my gosh, thank you so much for inviting me to this event. I absolutely loved it. If you are not putting yourself in the position to do that when you are attending an event or writing that in a LinkedIn message before going to an event, or you see something on the internet, let's call it an event for Amika, the hair care brand, and you want to DM them and say, hey, I saw your most recent event in New York City. I absolutely love the products. I've actually made a UGC video. I know you guys haven't licensed it or anything, but I have used the products in my content. Here's a link to it. Would love to show up at the next event and support the brand. That is a much more compelling way to talk to the brand and to talk to the social media managers handling invites a lot of the time than, hey, I would love to come to your event next time. Boring. If you approach people on the brand side that way, there is a very small chance that they will respect you and that they will invite you. I just think creators sometimes just get on the Instagram DM and they just type, send without thinking. And I want all of you to be successful in getting invites to events. So another example of this that actually I did the other day, let me just pull it up on my phone. So I messaged this woman who she works on marketing for a major health conference that I want to speak at and attend. And so I said, hey, name, I would love to be connected for conference opportunities in 2026 if it's aligned. I would love to learn more and connect. She says, hi, Gigi. Looks like you may qualify for an influencer pass. If you want, you can apply here. I said, that's awesome. I'd love to be considered as a speaker too. Is that something we can discuss? I know the application opens in about a week. She says, yes, you can absolutely apply on May 1st. I'll keep an eye out on emails and in socials for the link. So I said, that sounds great. I have it bookmarked. I look forward to seeing you there. That is a very simple but candid way that I've asked. Another thing I've also written to somebody that is a marketing coordinator at Possible that I'm going to meet next week. I said, hey, looking forward to meeting you at Possible. I'm going to be spending most of my time in the creator economy space. Would love to meet you and find a way to collaborate on social content while there. Part of it is shooting my shot. The other part of it is just saying, hey, I'm going to be here. I'd love to support your work and great job at what you're doing. Also, for something like Cannes Lions, I have been in touch with the chief growth officer at Cannes Lions for a couple years. And right before they launched the Creator Pass, I actually have had conversations with him. And then I had conversations with him again as I was submitting. And now that I'm finally going this year, I'm like, hey, would love to be considered as an official Business of Influence ambassador in 2027 for Cannes Lion. I know they've already chosen their people for 2026, but he said, that sounds totally awesome. I'll have you meet with this one specific person so you're connected to her for next year with the marketing team. So it all comes down to messaging, shooting your shot, but not overstepping the boundary and not making it seem fully self-fulfilling. What do event hosts look for when deciding who to invite? They look for obviously somebody that is down to be in photos, down for an interview, down to be on a panel, down to collaborate. Brands obviously should be paying creators for their name, image, and likeness. And at the same time, creators should be willing to put themselves out there to make themselves available for the opportunities. Otherwise, they're just not going to get them. Is it better to be deeply niche or broadly known when trying to get invited? Honestly, it depends more about who you are than what you do. I know that was a lot to take in. It matters more about who you are than what you do. It matters more about how you communicate with people, how you show up online, what kind of content you post, how you portray yourself online than it does about the niche that you're in. If you're a beauty creator, you may get a bunch of different invites. You may even get a lot of partnership invites, but maybe you're challenging to work with. Maybe you miss your deliverables. If you are that kind of creator that is a little sloppy in your communication on a professional level, brands may not invite you as much. And that is just kind of how the industry works. I think that's how many industries work, and it's no different in the creator economy. How do speakers get discovered by event organizers? So as I mentioned before, there are so many ways to do this. You can either reach out to somebody at the place where you want to speak, or if you are ballsy enough, you can submit through the DMs, you can submit via email, or usually these conferences will have a speaker form that you can submit to. So I highly recommend doing that. You don't necessarily even need to have experience speaking. You just need to, again, think about who you are rather than what you do. How can you as an individual offer some new, innovative, and expert level advice when you're speaking on a stage in front of, dozens, hundreds, even thousands of people? That is what you have to start thinking about. You have to start thinking about how you're positioning yourself. And if you're not thinking about that, then you should definitely subscribe to this podcast so that you can figure out more about how to position yourself if you're starting from zero. What materials actually help a speaker get booked? Honestly, it really depends. If you do not already have some kind of speaker reel or portfolio of where you've spoken, then I will say you probably are at a little bit of a disadvantage, but sometimes conferences are just looking for creators with big social followings. And if you have a social following, that's great. You should definitely include that. If you've spoken at other places, just throw it into an Adobe Express presentation and make it a public view link. Once you have that public view link, I want all of you to make sure that it's titled with the different logos of where you've gone. If you don't already have a speaker reel, I highly recommend grabbing clips at every single public speaking thing that you do. I personally use the DJI and the DJI Mic 2s, and I set them up at every single speaking engagement, even as a backup for what I am already filming on my personal phone or my Nikon Z30. I also usually require all of the brands where I'm speaking or the conferences where I'm speaking to send me the final footage of the conference. That is key to helping your speaking reel really look great. If you are not there yet, maybe you have a friend in the audience who can grab some content on their phone, they can grab a couple photos, that will do in the beginning. Also, grabbing all of the logos of all of the events and places that you've spoken at. So if you've spoken at Harvard or Yale or VidCon or CES, grab those logos. And believe me, I started small. My first speaking engagement was actually Advertising Week in 2021 during the pandemic, and it was completely virtual. But guess what? Because of the way that I had been showing up on the internet and networking with people at Meta during the pandemic, I was able to be pulled in not through the Advertising Week panel, but actually through the Metas panel. And it was really great to be connected with them because, again, it showed my social proof of this is a trusted voice within the creator economy. I wasn't just on the panel because I was a creator. I was on the panel because I was talking about the future of work and Gen Z in the creator economy. And at the time, I think all I had was my website. So that was the first logo that I got to put. I actually put Meta and Advertising Week into that portfolio. And then years later, obviously, I've also spoken at different conferences and panels hosted by Meta at Meta HQ. I have also spoken at Advertising Week, IRL, in New York City, and that was a great experience. Now with AI tools like Claude, ChatGPT, Adobe Acrobat's AI assistant, it is easier than ever to get all of your ideas packaged really, really beautifully. So if you have spoken at places before, but you don't have an asset, just get in the chats and make it happen. It is not hard. Actually, one of my favorite tools lately has been using Adobe Acrobat's AI assistant and generate presentation feature. So just as an example, if you have a description of every single speaking engagement you have done, copy and paste it into the AI assistant in Adobe Acrobat. From there, you can go and generate presentation, and then hopefully you can jump into Adobe Express. From there, you can add in all of your photos and even videos that you can play on the presentation. And that is a wonderful asset that once you set it to be a public view link, people can just tap through. And you can even make this as a public view link website if you don't want to do a presentation. But I personally enjoy having everything in a presentation format. You can send it to people, anybody can view it, and it is a great way to utilize a tool that I'm sure a lot of you already have access to. If you're interested in more in-depth tutorials on Adobe Acrobat, you can definitely go check more out in the description. So shifting gears, how do you know when you're ready to say yes to speaking opportunities? It comes down to, do you want to be on a stage or not? And if you don't, that's fine. I think there's a beauty in pushing yourself to try something that maybe you're scared of or you're not necessarily interested in, to figure out whether or not it could A, be a revenue generating opportunity for you, or B, is something you actually like, or C, is something you never ever want to do again. It comes down to you and what you want to do. So as you're listening to this, think about that. Do I want to be a speaker because I have something to share with other people that will help them, that will help serve a certain community, that will help other people grow and expand in their careers? Or do I just want the opportunity because you saw somebody on the internet with it and you think that it's a good look? That's the true hard question that I want all of you to think about. What makes someone speaker ready if they've never spoken on a stage before? Honestly, it's one of those things that you just have to put the reps into. If you don't put the reps into learning how to command a room or understanding the cadence and figuring out what kind of rapport you have with a moderator who maybe you've only had a Zoom call with, or maybe you've never even met them before, you're not even sure what questions they may ask. I think having a bunch of go-to stories in your back pocket that you can answer about who you are, what you do, how you help people, and where people can work with you is the best possible thing you could do for yourself. What behind the scenes behaviors make organizers trust you again? I think organizers behind the scene trust me over and over again, especially when I go above and beyond to create content, to consistently post about it, to do pre-event posting, to do post-event posting, to also show my enthusiasm for working with them and my gratitude for showing up and working with them time and time again. That is the number one thing I think that gets people rebooked, whether you're a creator or a speaker or even an author, right? Sometimes it comes down to, for authors, how many books you're selling. For creators, it comes down to how many clicks you're getting, how many sales you're making. Sometimes for creators, it's just about reach and who's viewing the content, or it's about if the brand boosts it, how well the boosted ad performs. For speakers, it comes down to, did the audience enjoy your session? Did people come up to you afterwards? And was there a line of people waiting to talk to you afterwards? In their feedback forms, did they say, OMG, this one person in this one session was so phenomenal? And sometimes that's what gets you rebooked. Other times it's a matter of thanking them and just saying, hey, thank you so much. This was absolutely incredible. Would love, love, love to do it all again next year. And just thanking them and just showing up and going in literally any session that they have for you, as long as it's aligned. Why not? Okay, so after me talking this entire time, I hope it's clear that public speaking can really be a big revenue stream for creators. I think it's incredible when creators harness their voice and they are able to articulate the progress that they've made and the work that they've done on social media, and they're able to extract their wins from there and then communicate it to a larger audience on a stage. And it's just a really great opportunity to work with other brands, to weave brands into the conversation that you're having for extended monetization opportunities. It is also obviously a great visibility opportunity when creators are able to be at these big events, not just as an attendee, but as a participant. So if you've gotten anything from this episode, it is to try out public speaking. And if you don't know where to start, I think practicing in a mirror is great, but also going to community events and putting yourself out there, asking a question in front of 100 people at a conference, that's a great place to start. So let's wrap it up by moving into our creator hotline. So I got a DM from somebody that said, I seriously struggle keeping up with communication between DMs, texts, emails, and client stuff as I've been making more connections. How do you manage? I feel like as soon as I get right ahead, I am right back where I was. Okay. First of all, when you have a situation where you feel like you can't manage your DMs, I think it's really cool to note that there are different DM automation tools that exist out there. When you're dealing with DM management, aside from the native platforms that you're managing your DMs on, there are now really awesome tools where you can actually trigger different automations and ultimately have people submit questions to you, because at the end of the day, not everybody deserves your time and not everybody actually needs a real human to answer the question that they have. And I'm not just saying delegate everything to AI, but at the end of the day, if you're working a full-time job or you're building a IRL coaching business and then you have to go and answer DMs and it's like, oh, I literally don't want to be on social media right now, there's definitely an AI automation for that. So make sure that you are looking at tools like ManyChat, like Linktree, like Later, and like Adobe Express Content Scheduler, so that your content and other areas of your business can be handled by automations and by scheduling so that you're not burnt out. And if you guys loved this episode as much as I did, please make sure to leave us a review and follow. We will be back next week with a recap of Possible. I am so excited for you guys to hear the interviews that I'm going to be doing. I'm interviewing 2 CEOs dropping soon. I can't wait. My first ever interviews that I'm going to be doing on creator etiquette. And I cannot wait to give you the full debrief. All right. You guys are awesome. Make sure to tune in again. And of course, follow us over on Instagram at Creator Etiquette. I love you all so much, and I will see you next week. Bye.